Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Start a Glamping Business podcast hosted by Glampitect. And this episode, a special episode with Sage Outdoor Advisory with my trusty co-host, Nick Perslow. And Nick's actually given me the wheel to do the intro today because we have a very special guest, someone who is a good friend of mine and a good friend to the entire industry. I actually refer to him as the godfather of glamping because he's really been in it since the beginning. And I like to think that Nick and I have helped a lot of people in the glamping industry, and our work allows us to do that. But I think when we compare it to Ruben, it pales in comparison because of how long he's been in the industry and the groups and tools that he's set up to help people who are launching in this space. And so I don't know if there's anyone that knows more people in this industry or is better connected and has seen more companies kind of start and go through growth. And I guess more specifically, he started by founding Glamping Hub, which is an online provider to help people find glamping sites to book. The AGA, the American Glamping Association, which is a group of owners, providers, people in the glamping space looking to launch or grow businesses, as well as a integral media partner and co-host of the Glamping Show that takes place in Denver every year. And I think I would add by saying that the AGA and the Glamping Show are kind of at the core of this niche industry. And I think I've heard countless people say this, but everyone in glamping is so nice and so friendly and so helpful. And I think that's due to two really key things, and that's due to the AGA and that's due to the Glamping Show, of which Ruben is an integral part. So without further ado, we could hop right in. Nick, is there anything you want to add?
No, I think you've summed it up perfectly there, Connor. I'll let you carry on.
Perfect. All right. Well, Ruben, it's an honor and pleasure to have you on the show. Would love to kind of turn it over to you and get a little bit of your backstory and kind of how you got into the glamping space.
Yeah, thanks for having us, having me, Connor and Nick. Really appreciate having the conversation. So I guess my backstory is way back in the day, the 1600s, when we first started in this. Glamping was a term that was a bit universal abroad, but within the United States, it was still looked upon in a different way. And you said the word glamping and people didn't really understand it. It really had more of a negative connotation than a positive. And I know now, as you fast forward to 2023, there are still people who don't understand it, but it's a lot more well received. So back in the day, you couldn't really say the word glamping without knowing that you're going to get some type of cringe reaction. But after university and after, working a bit at a few companies, longtime friend and co-founder of Glamping Hub, we just started looking at the industry as a whole. And we met in Spain. We worked for a tourism company out there, and we would take people on tours to Morocco, all around Spain, Portugal, kind of all over. And that was our style of travel, was a bit more experiential based travel, which wasn't really a thing at the time. It was just us finding things off the beaten track, a bit more rustic, a bit more engulfed in nature. And that's just how we like to travel. And so when we took a step back and said, what does this market actually look like and what does the industry look like? It was pretty clear that the industry as a whole, especially within the United States, North America, was severely fragmented. Like, you just were trying to find information. We were trying to find places to book that were, a yurt on a winery or some safari tent that we knew that was out there in this country or that country. And we just couldn't easily find it. So we knew that there was a problem there. And so we just kind of set out to fix it. And we created a very basic directory. I still remember the conversation with the lady that we convinced to be the first listing on Glamping Hub. So imagine trying to sell somebody. And at that point in time, I think it was like $250 to sign up to be on the directory. So, trying to convince somebody to mail you a check at that point in time for $250 for a business that didn't exist, for a website that they couldn't see, So, I still remember at that point in time, really trying to fine tune your sales skills because you didn't have anything really to point to. And so, yeah, that was really the beginning of my experience within the glamping space was trying to create a directory, a marketplace for the type of travel that I truly enjoyed and didn't really exist, within a comprehensive site at that point in time.
And so, your journey into the glamping industry started there in 2011, as you say, with the origination of Glamping Hub. And as you mentioned, that does feel like a long time ago in the industry now. I was leaving elementary school, which might make you feel really old.
Don't make me feel old.
So, with the industry being in such in the early stages as it was back then, was it an instant success, Glamping Hub, or did it take time to become the success that it eventually went on to become?
It was, I think just like with every business, I think it's rare. And, if you're part of one of those businesses that just immediately takes off within a short period of time, good on you. That's awesome. But I think with most businesses, it's a slow burn, right? I mean, it was immediate that we were aware of the opportunity. It was immediate the type of reception that we were receiving and the ability to connect the dots. But everything else took time, right? Having to build something, the ability to actually scale a business, figure out kind of really where we were at the beginning. We thought that, that this would be bigger within markets like, a South African safari or places that really were well known for glamping, but they just didn't need booking websites. And so we definitely had a few pivots along the way that allowed for us to eventually, we weren't even focused on the United States at the very, very beginning, but we just took a step back and that was naturally growing, like a wildfire. And we're like, maybe we should just focus here on the United States. We've really put very limited effort into it, and it's becoming our number one market. And so that's what we did. And I think, like with any business in this space, we've said for years and years and years that we're barely scratching the surface, and I still believe that. We're still nascent. So back in the day, the growth was strong, but there was still a level of we're not there yet, right? I mean, the question that I would always receive to this day, and still one of the first questions, that I always get when we're doing interviews and things like that, where, is this a fad? Is this something that's going away? And I say it to this day. I mean, I've got that question, and every year there's been record growth, but we're also still barely scratching the surface. And so I think that's a positive place to be. But yeah, definitely a slow burn.
And was there a point in time where, or a year in particular, where you began to realize that this was actually, that you were onto something with this glamping directory, and the kind of model really started to be set in stone?
Yeah, I think, I tell this story about how early on we had really no revenue. There's just two of us. We were kind of just slogging away and no employees, nothing like that, trying to figure out what this was and what it wasn't. And I used to get the paper at that time. It was the USA Today, was delivered, to my house, and that was part of my morning routine. I would read the paper, have my coffee, breakfast, and then kind of head out. And just randomly, we were on the front page of the money section for USA Today, talking about glamping. It was half positive, half them, being negative about the website and how we didn't really have a lot of options and things like that. But, it was the featured article. And, for us to take a step back and think, man, we have really no revenue, no employees. It's really just a bit of a side hustle at this point in time. That was really a moment of, okay, if this is getting picked up at a national scale, if we're getting picked up, there's got to be something that we have to uncover, and there has to be something that we have to explore. We might be onto something, and we didn't have the answers at that point in time, but that definitely was a light bulb of this might be something big, and we might be hitting it at the right time. So, what are we going to do? So yeah, that's definitely one that stands out.
And then the Glamping Hub journey went all the way up to 2022, when I believe you kind of exited on your majority position. Are you happy to share some information about how that all came about?
Yeah, I think over the years, we knew that because we were early in our effort into the space, there was always going to be people who were interested in acquiring and any type of tech company, right? It's about speed, it's about scalability, it's about numbers that aren't necessarily built for the next 40 years. It's about how do we move and gain as much of the market as quickly as possible. And so that was always our goal. And along the way, we always had exciting conversations with everybody from the larger OTAs, Airbnbs to VRBOs, to everybody who are always interested in us. Because we had taken on decent investment, we always had to make sure that we were making the right decision. So the exit that was eventually made was to kind of sell off the marketplace to private investors, and for them to essentially run Glamping Hub as is, and kind of take on new ownership and give it a whole new life. So CJ Wolf, out of Park City, Utah, they're private investors, and they bought Glamping Hub, and they're kind of moving it forward in their own direction. And yeah, it was, I guess what I can share is that it was a long time coming. The private investors bought it. We still kind of retain an initial entity that can go out and kind of do other investments and things like that. But Glamping Hub is still live and well and doing what it needs to do, and doesn't have these old guys around anymore trying to and it's like, just like with anything else, we always just call it running your race, right? It's like a relay race, and eventually we've been doing it, I think, for, I don't know what the stats are, but typically most businesses fail within a year or two. And so for how long we've been doing it, for raising multiple rounds of funding, for in a nascent industry, I think we were proud for where it ended, but we were also very tired. There's only so much that you can run your race, and then at some point in time, you have a responsibility to the board, you have a responsibility to investors, you have a responsibility to the industry, for other people to kind of take it on and run their race.
Did you come from like a tech background, Ruben?
No, studied business, got my MBA in international business, but we always joke that my business partner and I had never built a website before, and we're not glamping experts. I mean, we did travel and ran a travel company, and love that type of travel. So we always joke that who best to build a glamping website than people who were not glamping experts, and or people, we'd never built a website before. We just kind of figured it out. And so I think that's part of the unique journey. But I think we were also very smart along the way to recognize that we were never the smartest people. We were never the most tech savvy, but we were good with people, and we figured out how to hire, especially that initial group, and throughout the process, just people who are smarter than us, just problem solvers, and the trick was always just kind of keeping everybody pointed in the right direction. So yeah, that was definitely something that was part of our journey. Was, hey, we're not the smartest people in the room, but we'll find people who can be the smartest people in the room and help us move this forward.
Was there any like lessons learned or looking back, like gold nuggets of insights from the OTA perspective that would be interesting to someone going out and starting a glamping business?
Yeah, and I still see this to this day in a certain way, where a lot of times as you look at other investors who are investors or technology or operators, they come from maybe the hotel world or bed and breakfast or traditional hospitality, whatever it may be. And they take their learnings, they take their experience, and they try to apply it to the glamping world, which is great. And there's going to be a lot of things that are relevant and similar, but it's just a different audience, right? What you need when you're going glamping is completely different from what you need from if you're going into a hotel stay. And so from an OTA or a technology listing standpoint, for years we weren't always hyper aware of that. And it took a while for us to take a step back after just doing a lot of research, after just working with the team, to be hypersensitive to the type of information that somebody who's going glamping for the first time, maybe in the middle of nowhere with, a little bit more of a rustic setting, what they need is different than somebody who stays in a hotel, right? Somebody who's in a hotel, you book the Hyatt, the Marriott, whatever it might be. A hotel room is a hotel room, right? You know what you're going to get, right? You're going to have the check-in. There's going to be parking. You're going to go to the front desk. There's going to be a bathroom. There's going to be a bed. And yeah, the amenities and things like that are different. But the fundamental stay and the fundamental experience is completely the same. But if you're in a yurt accommodation that could be in the same county as somebody else that has a very similar operation, that experience could be completely different. And what they need, from information about Wi-Fi to things of what kind of car do they need, to the additional amenities that are there on site or not on site, or food or cooking, or all of that, could make or break somebody's stay, because it's very easy to get somebody to go glamping the first time. It's very difficult, and this is still a struggle to this day for a lot of operators. How do you get them to come back? And the main thing that we learned is that when people show up and what they see is what they expected, the loyalty is there. But if they show up and because of the information, because of the quality information, it's different, man, they're the first people to say, screw this place, I'm never coming back, this was terrible. And it probably wasn't terrible, but their expectations were just never aligned up with what was there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very interesting. Nick, any follow-up questions before we go to the AGA?
None from me.
Okay. Well, Ruben, we'd love to hear a little bit more about the American Glamping Association, the AGA, what it is, what it does, the value to the members, and kind of how it got its start.
Yeah, so over the years, and just being in the position that I was in Glamping Hub, I would always get questions, concerns, just emails from random operators, manufacturers about, hey, how do I set up this? Or I need help with permitting. Or do you know somebody who can provide insurance? Or I don't even know where to start. I feel like I'm a crazy person. So at some point, Sarah Dusick and I, the founder of Under Canvas, got together, and we were just having our normal random catch-up conversation. And this just came up, right? Are you receiving these types of comments? Yes, I am. And at the end of the day, we determined that for the betterment of the industry, we needed to create some type of mechanism, some type of organization that could formalize many of these informal conversations that we were having. Because if we didn't, somebody else would, and it may not be the right advice, it may not be the right connection. And we were concerned at the beginning, at that point in time, that as the industry was just continued to boom, that all it takes is a few bad experiences for a bad, this organization that essentially, for example, doesn't do something right and it burns down and people, get hurt or something like that. For the lack of quality to really bring down the industry. We were concerned about that. But we also didn't want to be a policing agency. And we didn't want to be a policing agency for a few different reasons. One, we didn't think that it would be a right fit for the industry to kind of constrain it. And also, we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to get people in trouble. We didn't want to say, hey, you need to do this better. We felt that the best way to move the industry forward was to provide tools, resources, education, connectivity in a community. And at the beginning, we didn't exactly know how to do that, but we knew that that's what we wanted to do. So, we set it up in that way for us to have a organization that could grow with the industry. At that point in time, people were saying, we need to define glamping. It needs to be X, Y, and Z, and you guys have to define it. And we made a pretty hard call at that point in time, which ended up being the right call, in my opinion, that we said, no, we're not going to define it because it's still growing. And what happens if we define the industry into this corner, into this bucket, and we don't allow it the air to breathe and to grow? Then that's not the right thing to do. So we made a decision not to define structures or define it's this, but more to support the industry. So yeah, the association was set up to kind of help standardize what wasn't standard, to help educate and provide tools and resources to those that just felt stranded and secluded and alone. You know, we to this day, there's still a lot of conversations, but back in the day, a lot of times people are like, I just don't know who to talk to. Like I've got this great piece of land, but I don't even know where to start. And every person that I've spoken to about this in my network thinks I'm a crazy person. And so a lot of the beginning part of the association was us, just saying, you're not crazy. People have been doing it. They are successful in doing it. And let's just point you in the right direction. So the association has taken on some iterations over the years, but the foundation of it was, honestly, just to set up to help point the industry in a general direction when at that point in time, everybody seemed to be going in a million different directions. And the call was, if we can at least just point everybody in the right direction and give them the tools and resources, we feel everybody will win. And if we don't, maybe we'll still get there, but people will lose along the way, and it'll kind of take a lot longer, and that's not something that anybody really has the luxury of.
What an important group to the industry to bring everyone together and provide all of these resources. I know, like at Sage, we have a network and we have people that we recommend them to, but the AGA is like the true core and repository of people and information and help and tools and resources. And it's one of the first things that we recommend to someone who's starting a glamping business is to become a member of the AGA. How many members are there now, Ruben?
We count it by organizations. So, there's 700-ish organizations that are active, and, each organization can have 1 or 20 people that are part of it. So yeah, that's kind of where we sit right now.
Hi everyone, Nick from Glampitect North America here, and I've just got a very quick message to announce some extremely exciting news. Since launching in July 2022, Glampitect North America has made a name for itself in the North American glamping industry. We've consulted on over 40 glamping projects, accumulated over 47,000 podcast downloads and plays, and we're now ready to take the next step. And with that, we're absolutely delighted to announce that we're beginning the process of developing our own glamping projects. We want you to be involved. There are more details to come, but for now, we're taking expressions of interest from prospective investors. We're so excited to get this going. It's been a long time coming and we can't wait to get you involved. So all you have to do is fill out the form in the description of this episode and we'll be in touch with more information very soon. We can't wait to hear from you and we'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye. And Ruben, could you tell us a little bit about how a prospective operator who is just getting into the glamping industry, how the AJ specifically can assist them?
Yeah. Everybody's at a different place. I mean, when people come to us, a very common story is, I got 25 acres. I know I want to do something with glamping, but I don't even know where to start, right? And so some of the benefits that we provide is just being that first point of contact. And Connor, as you talk about a group, now more than ever, I think when we first started, that same member, we would really be doing a lot of the heavy lifting, seeing them through from A to Z, and there just wasn't really a great identified network at that point in time, and so it was our job to really be the boots on the ground and help them execute A to Z. For some people, we still do a good version of that, but right now, a member in that situation, it's a bit more of a one-stop shop, right? We're the connector. So everything from member resources, tools and resources, a a lot of times we can just answer the questions pretty quickly. Members will say, hey, I'm an operator. Do sanity checks, right? It'll be, is this right? Is this wrong? Is this right? Or is this wrong? And we can point them in the right direction and answer those questions. We review business plans. We help guide them along the way for when it comes to financing and some of those options. And then from there, it's really this connection of the network, getting them in front of. We make a lot of introductions of people. For example, a common story is, hey, I'm a new operator in the Austin area. I just have no idea what I'm doing. Is there somebody who's 3 years ahead of me that you can connect me with? Oh yeah, here's 5 people that are 3 years ahead of you. Talk to them because they would love to talk to you, because either somebody helped them out along the way and they wanted to return the favor, or somebody didn't and they know how hard that was. And then everything from discounts to different things that we can provide along the way. But everybody's journey is different, and sometimes the hard thing that we have to do is tell people you're not ready. Like, if you go forward, you're going to waste some time, you're going to waste money, and you got to wait. Like, you're just not ready, or sometimes I just don't see a pathway forward for you, and that might be something hard for you to hear, and here's why. You could probably fix those, but if you don't fix these things, because we've seen that. We've seen people who have tried to get to the finish line, and because of X, Y, and Z, they couldn't, and they were kind of destined to fail for certain degrees. So at the end of the day, we help everybody get to their finish line, but everybody's finish line is different. And then now, Connor, like with everything that you do, and Nick, with everything that you do, the beautiful part is that even for people who don't sign up to become members, and we still point them in the right direction, people who are new or existing or veteran, there's now such a substantial network of people. It's an economy, right? It really is an industry where we can kind of help with the education connectivity side. And now there's great services and technology that can really do the lifting as well. Because again, we're not the only ones in the space, which was the plan. The plan was for us to always help build and help connect, not be hey, we're the only ones that can help people. We're the only ones that are going to be able to do this, because that's just never sustainable. That's not going to be something that's good for the industry.
So from a largely virtual network, which is the AGA, someone signs up, they get pointed in the right direction to help guide them through the process, onto a more physical in-person event in the Glamping Show Americas, which plenty of people listening to this will have attended. It's the one in Denver in October. Now you're a media partner of the Glamping Show Americas. You've been heavily involved over the years. Could you just tell us a little bit about how that event came about, and then how it's grown into what it's become today?
Yeah. So back in the day, the operator and owner of this show, the Glamping Show in the UK, Peter of Swan Events, I actually met we've been exchanging emails, and it just didn't really work out. And I was coming back from one of my visits in our office in Spain, and we met in I think it was Stansted, the London airport, just at one of the restaurants and bars. He came out to meet, so we just had a quick lunch and a beer. And in that conversation, essentially, he asked, "Hey, I've been doing this show in the UK. It's been going really well. Do you think that this would work well within the US?" And immediately I said, absolutely. But here's the thing. We don't know how to run events. We know the network, and we know the community. We know people are just starving for information. They're starving for, more business. They're starving for something like this. But we can't do it, right? This is not, we're not an events company. So after that, he came over and we started looking at locations, and from there we determined that Denver was going to be the right place to do this. Half the reason so that I don't have to travel, but the other half is centrally located. People, we looked at New York and we looked at California and we looked at all over, and like, this is at least centrally located. to the best of our ability. And we ran the first one out of a hotel in Denver. And the idea was always, let's just see how it goes, right? And the first one was very well received, so well received that we said, I think we can maybe do 2 or 3 of these, one in California, one in New York, one in Denver. So within the same calendar year, we ran another one in Long Beach, California. And it was okay. I think it worked out well. It gave people another ability to, people in California, that's obviously a big market. But it was just too much, from a vendor standpoint, from an attendee. You've been to one in October. Are you really going to go to one in March? So that was a learning. So we scaled down our ambitions from, doing several of these in the year. Just let's do one really, really good one. You fast forward till today, or even let's call it even the pre-COVID version of this event. David had gotten in on the Peter, who was the original owner, said, we need to bring somebody who's got more local expertise, and that's where David Corse came into the picture, and he's obviously been vital to the success of the show within his experience in the shows that him and Sally have done. And so, when they came into the picture and took on, more ownership and responsibility, they really, moved the needle incredibly, because it became, instead of us being in a hotel ballroom and just being more of a speaker style event, you have people coming from all over the world setting up these large, impressive units. I mean, even this last show, as you guys saw, the amount of semis that are there and cranes. At what point I was coming out from one of my talks of being on stage, and I look out and I'm just eating a Panera sandwich, and I said to Amy, I said, is that a 2-story glamping structure out there? And she's like, yeah. And so it really has evolved into a whole new arena, but that had a majority to do with all the experience that David had and how to really run an event. And what was crazy too is that in the UK, as you guys know, it's more of a vendor style event. So when people from the UK show come over and see that people are spending 2 days listening to speakers, that the amount of structures that are up, the US show has already surpassed the UK show in size and numbers. And so it really just shows the opportunity, the depth of this market. And again, it's every year it's getting better and better and bigger and bigger. But yeah, so that's kind of the long-winded way that the story of the show was, started with Peter. We came in to really help, connect and make sure that we're bringing the right viability and valuability and everything from the speakers and the content. And then David's expertise in just how to run a show, how to make, we couldn't have, the show wouldn't be what it is if he hadn't of come in and taken over his role.
Yeah, I personally will never forgive you and David for scheduling the show when it is scheduled, because it ruins my birthday every year. I think this year I spent 13 hours putting tents up in the dusty outdoor bit. So
Nick, now that we know, we're going to have to just throw you a big birthday party there.
I'll take it.
One big party event. I mean, we'll get one of the big tents. Now you're going to have to say, it's been one of the best birthday parties I've ever had, and I wouldn't spend it any other way. But we'll have to prove it first. We'll have to prove it this next year.
We did go to a karaoke bar in the evening this year, which was quite fun. But yeah, we'll have to discuss the calendar next time. Just before we move off from the Glamping Show Americas, could you just give a quick kind of 30-second overview of actually what attendees actually get from the show, what activities, talks, etc. you've got going on at the show during the 2 days that's on the main show, and then the pre-show as well.
So there's a few things that go on, but if you show up on the first day, you've got the pre-show, which is really built for people who are aspiring operators looking to research the industry. This past year, we had a bit more of a focus on raising capital everything from exit strategy to just your options of debt versus equity. And in the afternoon, it's a bit more of a holistic conversation, everything from risk mitigation, to marketing, to, founder stories. And that day is great because it does give new and aspiring operators just a bit more lay of the land all in one swoop. Because sometimes the other parts of the show can feel a little bit more in depth for somebody who might just be researching. So new and aspiring operators, that's typically a really good day. The rest of the 2 days is centered around, we have expert speakers that come in and talk about a variety of topics. We have an indoor and outdoor vendor section, which has anybody and everybody in the space, and technology, products, services, manufacturers. And you look at where the industry was even 10 years ago and to now, the amount of just great providers, services, and manufacturers, you name it. It's incredible, the amount of people that are there. And if it doesn't matter if you're an aspiring operator or a veteran operator, they typically love being around there because you can see who's out there, who's new, who's going to help make your business bigger and better, help you scale, help you kind of move your business forward in a variety of ways. So there's an indoor vendor, there's an outdoor vendor area, and we do things like the Glamping Awards there. There's a nice welcome reception, but honestly, it's a great place for people who are researching. It's a great place for veterans to come in and veterans of the industry to really kind of reconnect and collaborate and see who's new and what it is. But it's a great 3-day event. I think most people would say they could be there for another day or two connecting with people. But I think most people by the end of the third day need about a week to decompress. And again, it is so at the end of this year too, driving around trying to help people at the very end of the show take down their units and things like that, because it takes days really to put them up and put them down, as you just said, Nick. And it's what is impressive and needed, but it's also I always feel bad at the end of the show seeing people like, oh man, hopefully it was very productive, because I know the next 2 days you'll be packing up and doing all of that.
Especially if they were up late around the bonfire the night before.
Exactly.
Or in the karaoke bar.
Yeah.
Hi friends, this is your host, Connor Schwab at Sage Outdoor Advisory. If you're launching an outdoor hospitality project like glamping, then we can help. At Sage, we offer feasibility studies and appraisals. Essentially what that means is we look at the market and your proposed business offering and do an in-depth analysis and financial projections to make sure that your business is profitable. This is something that's very helpful to know before you spend all of your time and resources launching. This is also particularly helpful if you're going to be raising money from a bank or private investors to capitalize your project. They're going to want to see this type of in-depth analysis from an independent third-party specialist. We've done over 250 projects across the US in the last 4 years, so we know what it takes to take a project from concept to reality. If this sounds like something that would be helpful to you, you can go to our website, sageoutdooradvisory.com, and you can schedule a complimentary intro call with one of our specialists. Thanks.
Well, I'm so happy that you guys decided to go with one event, and it is so nice that there's really just one glamping event. It's in the center of the country, and everybody goes all out. It was my 4th year this year, and I love it. And I always tell our clients that we're speaking with them of like, you've got to go. It's 6 months worth of networking and education in 2 days. But really the thing that you can't replicate about going to the glamping show, like you can do a lot of things online for networking and research, but to be able to see, 50 to 100 different units, glamping type units in person, feel them, touch them, go inside, speak with the owners, ask questions, get price quotes. Like there's no other opportunity around the country to get that. And so it's, if you're starting a business and you're trying to figure out what unit types, it's the best place to do that, hands down.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a gap. I mean, what's interesting too is that, just to add on there, is eventually more and more manufacturers will have more of these showrooms. A few do, that allow people who are seriously looking to acquire units to go to these locations and touch them and feel them and stay the night in them. But until that happens, to your point, before you spend, a significant investment on units, you want to really feel it out. You really want to be able to look at it because, yeah, pictures are pictures and videos and testimonials are testimonials. But until you see it, you say, oh, wow, that's a lot different than I thought it was. Or I think the interesting part is that usually when people leave after they've been looking for units, they're probably even more confused because they say, I came in thinking I was choosing between these 2 units, but now I'm choosing now between 12 units because I love these other 10. And now it's even a harder choice because I love these. I would have never come across these units unless I would have come to the show. So yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it really is the best place for people to be if they're, in research mode for units.
Hopefully the audience understands now why I call you the Godfather after going through your contributions with, Glamping Hub, the AGA, and the Glamping Show. And I guess, given this, decade plus of experience and helping people and networking and seeing people launch these businesses, what do you see are the biggest roadblocks that prospective glamping operators are encountering, and what advice, would you give them to help navigate those things in the early stages?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. It's something we battle on a daily basis. And I'd answer it by first saying there's now more and more tools and resources than ever, right? Go back to, the great things that both you guys do on a daily basis. That just wasn't there 10 years ago, right? And so now the set of hurdles that exist are very specific, where before it was much more a little bit anything and everything. And we'd always kind of help people force everything through from permitting to insurance to site location, and people just not really wanting to touch these types of projects. So now there's a huge momentum upswing for the industry as a whole, which helps. And with that, kind of shakes out the very 2 specific problems that people see on a daily basis. And one is permitting, permissions, entitlements, and the second is capital. I think if we start with capital, which is always going to be the largest hurdle, there's more and more resources, right? So you have people that are now giving more SBA loans. There's now equipment financing. There's more traction with this space, which makes it easier for friends and family rounds or other types of unique equity offering in the space. And so that's good. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. These larger investments and investors are coming through, and the problem is that a lot of times they do like to back one horse, right? They like to back one brand, and they're not, truly agnostic and just deploying capital across the space, which is tough. But banks are now looking at these and saying, all right, we're interested in this. But the hurdle is operators really need to be buttoned up. Many times you only have one shot at those types of conversations. A lot of times you don't have historical information, revenue, data. You haven't been in the hospitality space before. You haven't been in glamping before. So the hurdle boils down to how can an operator very effectively communicate that they're going to be good stewards of other people's money, right? Because they can be, and now there's proof, but that communication of how am I going to instill confidence in this investment is really the big hurdle, because some people can do that, some people can't. Even if they have a great business plan, it doesn't necessarily matter in certain degrees. And so I think that's going to be a consistent hurdle, is making new and aspiring operators the best versions of themselves. And they can do that with bringing on the right team, doing the right research, having feasibility studies, making sure that their business plan is buttoned up. We've got tools and resources to help them out. Talking to the right banks, talking to the right debt providers, because at the end of the day, it's a scrappy endeavor. There is no, you've heard me say this a million times, there is no glamping bank. There is no, one-stop shop. And I hope that one day, Connor and Nick, maybe when I'm 100 years old, you guys will say, hey, look, there is a glamping bank and there is a one-stop shop, and this makes it as easy as possible. Just there isn't that uniformity right now, and I think the way that we fix that is every time a glamping operator wants to get up and running, where we can all make sure that they do, that helps the big picture, right? The worst case scenario is that when somebody quits, when somebody stops, when somebody falls off, everybody loses. The operator loses, the bank loses, the manufacturers lose, the users have less places, and travelers have less places to go. And so it really is a slow burn in that. And the same thing with the permitting. More and more counties are getting on board, but still there's a lot of counties. There's a lot of states. There's a lot of locations that still have yet to figure out what this is. And so, as we take a step back, those will continue to be the biggest hurdles. There are more and more solutions, but there's still a lot of work to be done in both of those very specific categories. And the good news is that at least we have filtered out very specific issues within those, instead of it just being this big umbrella of an issue. Capital, permitting, it's now boiled down to very specific occurrences. And so now we can, attack it with more prescribed effort.
And for anyone looking for a head start on the capital side of things, I'd recommend they listen to our last co-hosted special we did with Nick Parker from Live Oak Bank, and that was out, I think, on the 15th of November, so shouldn't be too far to scroll for anyone listening to this. So moving from the roadblocks facing new operators or prospective operators onto the common themes of sites who have been up and running for a year, 2, 3, however long. What are some of the common themes of the best glamping sites that you've seen that prospective operators might want to replicate when they're developing their concept?
Yeah, I would say team is number one. As I look through those that have, that I'm most excited about, operators that have just been doing some exciting things, operators that have excelled in the space, they've done one of two things. One, they started with a very, very strong team, or they knew how to build them quickly. Rarely do you see kind of the Lone Ranger, the person who's like, I'm going to do everything. It'll be sure, you could do that maybe to a certain small degree, but it's hard. It is so hard to develop. It is so hard to manage. It's so hard to do this on a daily basis. So team would be definitely the number one thing to consider. The second would be those that are humble and willing to listen to feedback. Many times as we're building these out, we get so enamored with maybe some of our own success or our vision of it that we fail to take a step back and listen to what other people are saying. And that could be what the guests are saying. We've countless instances where somebody says, I'm going to have this type of structure. Here's what's going to look like. It's going to be great. And they set it up and it's just not great, and for various reasons, right? And they failed to listen to maybe some early feedback on what that would look like. And feedback from staff, feedback from guests, feedback from investors. And it's hard because we're human and we have egos and we want to be the best at everything that we do. And hearing that, hey, that's no good, or hearing you need to change this, can sometimes feel like we failed. But I think to that point, you're going to fail. And I think people just need to really understand failing doesn't mean failure. All it means is, hey, we're going to get this feedback and we're going to make some changes, right? It's not that you've lost. It's not that everybody goes through that. You just have to embrace that you're not going to get everything right, and embrace that you're probably not going to get a lot right. But what can you do to actually just keep moving forward? And then the last, I'd probably say to that degree, don't be afraid to change. Set yourself up in a way, because this industry is still evolving, because there's still a lot of gray area, blank space, there's still a lot to be worked on, that your business that you have in your mind today will probably be different than the business on day one of operation, and will probably be different on year 5. And you have to be willing to pivot. You have to be willing to change. And even though that could be scary. And I think some of those examples that we've seen, for example, is even with staffing. Sometimes people are afraid to make staffing moves and changes because maybe that person had been with them for a while. They know that maybe they're cancerous to the organization, but they don't want to make that change or pivot. Usually your gut is right with some of the hardest decisions, and you're going to have to make a lot of hard decisions. And just know that at the end of the day, those don't go away. And so the quicker you can get used to hard feedback and the quicker you can get used to making changes, the better the business is going to be off, because the industry is going to continue to adapt. It's going to continue to change. And that's okay. That's not a bad thing. But it's hard. And, this is, even though this is now, there's manufacturers and technology and products and services, this is still at the root core a people business. It's people go glamping. It's a very emotional choice. People who get into glamping, it can be a very personal journey that they're on. And so you have to be able to understand the human element of everything and just know that at the end of the day, you're going to have to make some hard decisions, but trust your instinct and continue to realize that this is still very much a human, a human-led industry.
And have you come across anyone? Are there any like rising stars in the industry that you think are creating something really special or are people to watch?
When I was thinking about this type of question, I think what comes to mind is the types of organization, the type of operators that are going to really be successful here moving forward in this next phase. So during COVID, I kind of branded that the age of development, right? Everybody was developing, pardon me, everybody was investing, everybody was trying to get up and running. And then now we're in this new phase of kind of evening out and people really being more methodical about where they're investing, more methodical about where they're developing, because the growth that we had during COVID, that wasn't sustainable, right? We boomed to a level that this industry had never seen before, but it was always known that at some point we were going to level off, right? We weren't going to decrease. We were just going to be more realistic with yearly earnings and the numbers across the board. So I think, broadly speaking, the operators to watch are going to be those that are quick to market. So what we learned during COVID, right, is that people were rushing and trying to deploy capital, but couldn't do so in a way that was realistic. They couldn't get the permits in time. They ran into personnel issues, labor issues, all sorts of. They didn't do their timeline correct, and all of a sudden the winter hit in, and so they had to wait a whole other year. So there's going to be operators that are now set themselves up to actually be up and running, shovels in the ground, as quick as possible, because that's what investors want. They don't want to give you money today to then break ground 3 years down the road and then have break even another 3.5, 4 years after that. They want to know that you're ready to go today. You've got everything lined up and you've got that set. The second would actually be, this is experiential based travel. And I think some operators have done a really good job of a mixture of on-site and off-site experiences and activities and things like that. And those operators that can really capitalize on a unique offering on their property to be able to have additional revenue generating activities on their property are really going to be some big winners here moving forward here. And then the last is going to be that nice mixture of what's hard in this space is that, and we talk to a lot of people about this, is that people have a hard time coming to the realization that, is this a business or is this my hobby? And I think the big winners in this space are those who actually come to terms with one or the other. The amount of times that I've had conversations with people say, hey, this is going to be property number 1. We're going to do 10 of these. We're going to have 100 units each. And then maybe they never even get property number 1 off the ground. It happens a lot. And there's nothing against that. I think that's a very, American thing to say, I'm going to be this entrepreneur, I'm going to do it, and we're going to, great, awesome. The industry will always need that. But the big winners, I think, are going to be those that are realistic and saying, hey, this is just going to be a side hustle. I've got 2 units. I'm going to make this the best experience possible for my guests. Or, hey, I've jumped into this. I'm on property number 3 of 5. I've really sacrificed a lot to get to this point, and this is my reality, and this is my dream. Versus the disconnect of people thinking that, for example, that this really is a business when really it is a hobby for them, right? It really is not a business. And that hurts everybody, because then there isn't a true understanding of where they fit within the industry, and mistakes can be made at that point. So I think, the larger operators will continue to grow and do some really fantastic things. I think the small mom and pops will contribute, and a lot of the growth in the industry comes from them. But I'm probably most excited about that mid-tier, the ones who've really created a great brand. I think of like an Irene from Fields of Michigan, a Bobby Frisch from Firelight. Missing Hotel in Austin is one of my favorite ones. They've got some great domes there outside of the Austin area. But as they think of what does property number 2, 3, 4, and 5 look like, because that's where a good portion of the growth within the industry is going to come from, is the proven operators that have proven success, that are doing great things with their brand and can continue to add the right type of proof of concept for those that are trying to, the success of them means that, Joe Schmo who wants to just, get $50,000 from the bank can, because he or she can point to the success of that mid-tier, because the larger operators they're just in a different realm, right? That's a different investor. That's a different ball game. But that mid-tier is really going to be what drives the industry forward.
And you've seen, no doubt, a lot of great glamping sites. I'm sure you've also seen plenty of bad glamping sites. If we were to give you $1 million and you were to wake up tomorrow morning and say, okay, now I'm going to, develop my own glamping brand, what would your playbook be in that situation?
Ooh, good question. Are you sending me this money right away? Is this coming today? Okay.
to be only if you move the dates of the 2024 Glamping Show.
That's a good question. I think we're definitely past the time when, obviously, call it even 10 years ago, everybody was focused and going crazy over the national parks, right? Because of the obvious, you've got the influx of visitors, you've got this guaranteed traffic that's coming in. It's easy to sell, to investors. And then the second phase came some of these really exciting areas like, the Austin area, Asheville, other places in Montana, and even outside of Atlanta, where they can pull from major metropolitan area like Atlanta. But what I would probably do is there's a large subset of these, even below mid-tier, these fantastic smaller, they've got 10 units, 12 units, and they're looking to expand their own operation. So I think there's going to be plenty of people who go out and continue to build new brands and new brands and new brands. But I've been saying for a while that, and I don't want to call it consolidation, because I think this is more investment in these smaller brands that get overlooked, right? They're in the right area. They're in the right market. They've got a proof of concept. So instead of going out and trying to build one brand that would compete against all these other brands, I think the smart move, if I had $100 million right now, would be what can we do to elevate those kind of tier one projects that just need a little bit more to actually double their revenues, but they're getting overlooked, right? Because, traditional capital providers can't package them up. The unit growth strategy doesn't make a lot of sense for them. But if you could invest in 200 of them, all of a sudden, along the way, that would be, I think, the biggest bang for your buck, because people are overlooking that category. Everybody wants something shiny. Everybody wants something big and fancy. But big, fancy, shiny takes time, takes tears, takes blood. And so I would probably go towards, my instinct would be to invest and partner with those that have already done that work and that are being overlooked.
Is there anything that you'd like to ask the audience in terms of, or I guess, what would be great would be if you could tell people in the audience how they could sign up for the AGA, or if there's anything else that you'd like to ask the audience, what that would be.
Yeah, no, I would just say for everybody listening, you don't have to do this alone. 10 plus years ago, you kind of did in a way. I mean, there just wasn't much help, expertise. You'd get the bombastic side eye, as the youth is saying these days. And you don't have to do that. And whether my ask for everybody would be, it doesn't have to be us, but go out and have conversations with other operators, with other service providers, with you guys. There's just a lot of people who have expertise now who are willing to help. So I think many times people can just feel secluded and feel like I don't have anybody out there who can understand me, because they've gotten some weird responses from people who say, oh, glamping, like that'll never work. Like that's weird. And they internalize that and say, yeah, I guess that is right. Like my idea is stupid. And as you guys see every single year, that's quite the opposite when you show up at the Glamping Show. The amount of people who are just willing to help. I love hearing the comment like, oh man, I found my people, right? I found my people. Like that's all we really want. And so, yeah, feel free to go to our website and reach out to us if we can help. If we can't help, we always point you in the right direction. But also, don't just go to us. Go to anybody and everybody who is out there in the space to really soak up as much information as you can, because there's a lot of people who are willing to help, who want to point you in the right direction. And oftentimes, even if you feel like you've got most answers or you're doing okay, that connectivity and that network, we provide. What I like to say is sometimes people just use us as their insurance policy, and at least the network as a whole too, where when you need something, you can't just automatically go and create a network or connectivity, right? You want to have people say, hey, had this emergency. Oh, I know who to talk to. Like I can go to Nick, Connor, or Ruben, or whoever, and they've got my back because I have this emergency. You can't just flip a switch and then say, great, somebody's going to help me out. So building relationships within this industry is huge. We can help, but I would just do so, make sure you're doing the work on your own as well, because when there's going to be no shortage of opportunities for you to kind of tap into that network one way or the other, with or without us.
Love it. And what's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, just go to the website, the American Glamping Association.net, or send an email to the info at American Glamping Association.net. I wish we would have had a shorter email address, but we set it up way back in the day, and it's too late now. So,
well, Ruben, such a pleasure to have you on.
Thanks for having me.
Truly an inspiration with how much that you've done for this industry and countless operators and entrepreneurs. So, yeah, thank you for everything that you've done. Nick, anything you want to wrap it up?
No, just echo Connor's thoughts there, and also strongly urge anyone to, at the very least, check out the American Glamping Association website, see the vendors that are on there, and I'd also suggest joining as well. It's a really valuable resource. The member meetups are always useful, and I know Ruben also has a podcast of his own as well, which has some really great content too. So I would just strongly, all the links to everything will be in the description of this episode. So I would strongly recommend everyone check those out. But until then, thank you very much, Ruben. Really appreciate it.
No, thanks for having me. Thanks for all you guys do.